want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you. Hey.
That is right. Hey,
right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Mad Men of Masculinity, baby.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
For you. See, we have these conversations all the time.
Yeah. This is all we talk about.
This is what we do. This is what we do. We was out there playing golf the other day. Oh, it was freaking beautiful, man.
So
it was
nice.
an amazing day. And so we just out there. We had these conversations on the golf course. We had these conversations over burgers, burritos, anything, man. So
we're just letting y'all into our crazy little
yeah.
world here, so you can watch us and listen to us, and maybe gain a little bit of our crazy wisdom, because you can't get this old and crazy without gaining some wisdom.
For real. Hey, man, I was driving down the highway.
Uh-oh.
Because I do that sometimes. You drive down the highway
all day long.
Yeah, you drive
That's
down
all
the
I
highway.
do.
So I was driving down the highway, right? Mm-hmm. And I was in. The highway had 4 lanes. Okay,
right.
So
were you in the fast lane going slow again?
Well, I was in the second to the left lane,
okay,
right?
All right.
I was in the second to the left lane, and these cars and motorcycles just was like zooming by me on my left side, right?
Right.
You know what I realized at that moment?
What'd you say?
I am better in the lane that I'm driving in, that I'm supposed to be driving in for the speed that I'm driving.
Oh, yeah. You better.
Because if I was in the wrong lane,
yeah,
I'd be blocking up traffic. I'd be causing accidents. I'd be acting a fool.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who spends all day, as doing my day gig, as my Clark Kent gig, out on these roads, these streets, in Denver especially, I know probably for most major cities, the speed limit, that's the right lane. That's all the way to the right.
Right.
And then about 10 miles an hour over, depending on which road. Like if you're in the middle lane, that's like 10 over. If you're in the left lane, that's 20 over plus. Yeah. So make sure you stay in your lane. And if you don't know your lane, guess what? You're going to find out, because the dude behind you is going to let you know.
You got that right.
And
the dude behind you, that's a metaphor right there. The dude behind you going to let you know when you're in the wrong lane. Somebody behind you going to let you know when you're in the wrong lane. The next dude coming is going to let you know that you was in the wrong lane this whole time. This was a complete setup.
It is.
Because there are people out there who are maybe in the dating space. Maybe they're if they're in the dating space, hopefully they're single. Hopefully. There's some people that, shady people. There are people out there who are single, right? Men and women who are in the dating space. Maybe they got online dating. Maybe they got Facebook dating, all these different services. Maybe they just out there up in the streets doing whatever they do. Maybe they sit in the bars and all that kind of stuff. There are people out there that are in the dating space who may be riding along down the highway of the dating journey in the wrong lane.
Oh yeah. And if you haven't picked up the book 7 Secrets of Modern Dating, and you're not on digital dating, you're not on online dating, but you do want to find somebody and you're not sure which lane you're in, what I would suggest is to call in the experts.
Boy, do we have an expert for you.
Yeah, Kara Donahue's in the house.
Have mercy.
Claude have mercy.
We got an expert for you.
So
we got our good friend for many years now, several years now.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many I lost count. For several years now, Kara Donahue in his house. And you have a unique skill set. It's kind of like the movie Taken, where he's like, I got a skill set. I have a skill set that can make your life very difficult. You have a skill set that can make somebody's life a little bit more easier. In a way.
So. Yeah.
And your particular skill set is you happen to be the proprietor of a particular business entity called In the Loop. In the Loop Singles. Right? Is it still In the Loop Singles?
Yes,
All right, In the Loop Singles. And so why don't you give us kind of a quick and dirty, what is In the Loop?
Okay, so In the Loop is an activity and travel club for singles. So instead of meeting people online, you can meet people face-to-face at our activities. So we have locations in Seattle, in Denver, in Austin, and in Nashville. And we do about 30 events a month in each location. And we also do 6-7 trips a year. So you can actually meet people while you're doing something like Topgolf or a cocktail party or a hike or just doing something fun. Meeting people face-to-face. Basically, we're old school, where we actually meet people in person and not online. And it just helps you grow your network of single friends in a really organic way. And it helps you really meet a ton of singles face to face instead of online or, on an app.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend this. I mean, if you haven't picked up the book yet, I'm at this point. I mean, online dating is kind of dead. And
you have very strong opinions.
I have strong opinions
online
about
dating.
it. Just because there's too many scammers and there's too many people catfishing, too many people, just trying to get in your pocket, whatever. It's not about real connection. But something like this, like in loop singles, where you actually meet people in person, and I think the best thing about it is it's not technically dating. It's just about getting out there with single people to have fun, to do things. So, and if you get into the middle years like us, you don't necessarily have that crew of friends. You're not always going out every night. So it's nice to have somebody like Kara who sets these amazing things up that you can just show up to and then have, meet new people, have a good old time. And then you don't have to feel weird. It's not like speed. I mean, she does speed dating sometimes, but it's not like this weird speed dating thing where you just show up like, I'm here to date somebody.
Yeah. You actually get to know folks. You have staffs. Is that like
I
plural?
have event hosts.
What's plural for staff?
Staff.
You have a team?
No, just staff.
Is it? No.
It's just staff.
No,
It
staffs.
is.
Come on.
No, it's just staff.
I went to public school. It is what?
Thank you.
It's just staff.
It's just staff? Come on, man. I went to public school, but I do play golf. So you have staff.
Yeah.
In various cities.
Yep.
Seattle, Denver, Nashville,
Austin, Nashville,
Austin, Nashville.
all 4 of them, yeah.
But you still do what you said, trip. You just got back from Ireland, St. Patrick's Day, all that kind of stuff. And so, so to set the stage, so you got people who are part of who have membership in your organization, and they get together and do these activities, and they just meet people, and then ideally if something jumps off from that, then cool. But it's not about the pressure to meet somebody and hook up, right? I mean, is that the premise?
I mean, people meet people with us all the time, but worst case scenario is you meet a ton of new single friends, and you never know if like you meet somebody in the group and you meet your new best friend and she has a really hot brother. I mean, it happens because people oftentimes they have their pond that they're pulling from, but they need to grow their network of single friends, and so that's all really that it is.
And so that's the dope part of it all, right? I mean, where there's not really pressure kind of thing. And so that being said, to set the stage for this conversation,
for sure.
So you get a front row seat to watch this dynamic play out between, generally speaking, men and women, between people who are single and in the dating space. You get to see this dynamic play out in terms of how people meet, how people don't meet, the obstacles that people put in their own way or that they have in meeting. You get to see all that kind of stuff like front row.
Totally. And I actually wrote a book about 3 years ago because it's called The Golden Goose, The Ultimate Guide to Dating in Your Lane.
Mm-hmm.
Lane.
The lane.
The lane. And so, after meeting with singles for years, I mean, I've been doing this for almost 18 years. And after meeting with them, I kept on seeing the same mistakes happen over and over again. People are making the same mistakes. Yeah. And finally, I was like, I'm going to write a book about this. So, because they'll sometimes say to me, hey, I've been single for 5 or 6 years. What's going on? Why am I not, meeting my person? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, this is my opinion, and finally I put that opinion down on paper. Yeah. So,
Have you been looking in the mirror? Have you taken some personal responsibility, or is it always their fault?
It seems to be, it's getting worse. I mean, I'm hopeful that it's not going to be like this forever, but I do feel like with internet dating, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to somebody and they said, well, I just broke up with my boyfriend of a year and a half. So I get to talk to her about it, and she's like, never met him in person. That's
not dating.
Not really a relationship.
That's not dating. That's a pen pal.
That's what I say. It's a pen pal. So I always say to people, listen, to really know someone, you got to meet them in person. You got to, get to know them in and out, the good and the bad and the ugly, So that's been hard when people don't give people a chance because of something ridiculous.
Now, full disclosure.
Oh, yeah.
Because we already talked. So JBK, he's adamantly against online dating.
I'm not. Okay, let me preface this.
Keep it real.
Online dating has helped some people, but in this day and age, just even to Kara's point, you won't know if this is your person until you get out there and meet them in person. So you can have a pen pal for, like she said, a year and a half online, and then you meet them in person, and you don't click, you don't have any chemistry, it just doesn't work. So why waste your valuable time, the one resource you don't get back, and just go out and meet people in person? Because so many times you meet somebody that you would never have even picked online. You never, and then something just clicks.
Well, the thing is, if you're just meeting them, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but if you're just meeting people online, the thing is, it's safe. You don't have to be vulnerable. You don't have to really put yourself out there.
You ain't got to put your pants on.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything. It's just like, that's why people can ghost people so easily. You don't want to just you would never be sitting necessarily at a Starbucks and all of a sudden just turn around and walk away without a word.
Right.
But people can do that online.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot more personal when you actually have to meet them in person.
So, and so the other side of the full disclosure, I am legally unencumbered, but I am not single. That being said, I've in my single dating relationship journey, I've kind of met people in every way.
Yeah.
And, and currently, the person I'm with, I met on online dating.
Yeah.
And I think there's formulas and, and stories for all kinds of ways. We all got our path and our journey and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think either way, even in that experience, I do see how it can just be so two-dimensional. Mm-hmm. And we are three, if not, you can argue, four-dimensional beings. And so a lot of times people want to live on screens, and you can't have a relationship in a two-dimensional way when you're a three-dimensional being. When you're more, when there's depth to you, you can't have just a surface relationship with somebody else.
So let me ask you the question: since you met your current person online, how long did you stay online before you actually met her in person?
See, I was filthy in my online dating, man. I ain't gonna lie, I was filthy. I was.
You had
to
wash the screen. Got to put the
it was not
plastic
cool,
down.
man. It was not cool. First of all, I got to the point where I was jaded, and see why you gotta get. I just call what you say. Hey, why you got? See why you got?
What's going on?
I was to the point where A, I was jaded. Mm-hmm. B, I was just kind of. It was more recreational than anything. I'll be totally honest. It was recreation, and it was just meet somebody. I mean, I would have. I'm gonna confess. I'm gonna confess. My name is Kirk, and I had a lot of Starbucks points because I would have 3 and 4 Starbucks dates in a day, like in an afternoon. Just one to the other, and I had like 2 hours. So I was filthy. I was truly filthy with it.
It becomes a pastime.
It was.
People could sit on a toilet and just judge people going swiping. It's not actually meeting people.
It wasn't actually me. And I wasn't meeting people. Even though I was meeting people in person, I wasn't actually meeting anything because I even kept it surface for the most part. And so, I had to kind of catch myself in that whole rhythm. And that's why... I know we're about to go into our break here, but that's why I say I was filthy with it because, I was meeting people, but I wasn't really meeting people, and I was consuming. It was basically a entertainment, recreation kind of thing, and I was consuming the whole thing. There wasn't any kind of when we talk about, your events and the travel and all that there was no real depth of interaction. I didn't get to know anybody. You sit down and I play the game. It was like an interview and all this other kind of stuff, and I just kind of move on. So
for sure,
I don't know, but ultimately, so far, it worked out. I mean, it was.
Listen, I don't think it's necessarily you have to get offline. Yeah. I just think that generally speaking, it's better to try to just meet as many people as you can in person and see who you actually jive with.
Well, and sometimes, and Kirk and I we were actually talking about this on the golf course this weekend. Sometimes you just have to have that, I don't care. I'm just, because especially for a lot of guys we've worked with, coming from the nice guy syndrome and not coming in just as your authentic self. If you sometimes get to that place of I don't care and I'm just here to, have fun or whatever, it actually works in your favor because you're more yourself and then you're more likely to attract somebody who actually matches with you. Yeah. But, if you spend all your time trying to have matches or trying to get somebody and you're not being yourself, that can be at your detriment. And so that's why I'm kind of, if you're using online, get off of it as soon as possible and get in person so you can start that process.
It's a means to an end to a certain extent. Yeah.
So in my case, online dating was in another way a different lane of a highway. I was meeting people in various ways, but that was just one of them. And then I had to take a break and then kind of get back into it. And speaking of break.
Yeah, we need to take a break.
Hey, let's take a break. Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. We'll be right back. Boom.
And so, when we come back, we'll really jump into
can
staying.
You dial hers down, the light, the intensity of the light.
Oh, is it too much?
Yeah, just go minus a little bit. I had to do that on mine.
I don't know why I got this big one and it's still.
That's what she said.
It is.
That ain't what he said.
That's why they get so sad when I move on.
See, you see what I got to deal with, people. Y'all see this?
Right?
You see what I got to deal with? I got to keep him in line, man. I got to keep him in the fairway. It's like golf. I got to try to keep him in the fairway of this whole conversation.
All right, lighting director, is that better?
Boom.
You want more? Less?
That's fantastic.
Right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Boom.
In the middle.
And we're back.
Yeah, that's right. We back.
Men of Masculinity on KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in the Maha City. We got Kara Donahue of In the Loop Singles in the house.
That's right. What's up? Bringing it to the airways, bringing it to the media ways, on the interwebs, everywhere and all that kind of stuff. She's doing things in multiple cities, doing things big time. She has staffs.
All over the place.
She's got staffs in different cities.
No, because when you say staffs, it sounds like staph infection. It's kind of...
No, because staff.
That's not what he's saying.
No, because staff is PH. Staff is FF.
Yeah.
She got staffs.
But no, we got Karen in the studio because she is the real deal expert. Multiple cities all over the U.S. Right. She's been doing this for 18 years. Yeah. We're talking about, and she wrote the book, The Golden Goose. Yeah. What's the subtitle? Stay in your lane?
No, the ultimate guide to dating in your lane.
Boom.
Yeah. Dating in your lane.
Yes.
So boom. That's the whole point of this episode. Is we're gonna
dating
in
in your lane.
Yeah.
Dating in your lane. Now I thought about this because I know I've been on both sides where sometimes I'm like looking outside my lane, like, ooh, let me get up on that overpass and go get in the fast lane.
So what do we mean by lane? What do we mean by lane?
Let's break it down to sexual marketplace value. Yeah. So everybody has a sexual marketplace value, and if you to quote the Evergrades and pass on Canvas Samuels, you can't pick 7. So everybody's gonna say, what's your number? What's your sexual marketplace value? And most ladies, especially young ladies nowadays, like, I'm a 10. I'm the table. I'm the whole thing. It's like probably not. And for a lot of guys, it's like, well, 5, 6, maybe I'm a 7. Can't pick 7. So so having some actual personal honesty about who am I, what am I bringing to the table, what do I have to offer? Because a lot of times, for a lot of guys I know, they lowball themselves, and for a lot of ladies, especially younger ladies nowadays, they put themselves on a higher number. So
I don't agree with that, but go ahead.
Well, that's just what I see out there. We run in different circles. So
yeah. No, I get it.
But I do see a lot of younger ladies who are like, I'm a 10, and we're like, are you sure about that? Yeah. So that's the whole point. Having the self-awareness, know, okay, what's your lane, what's your sexual marketplace value, and then shopping in that lane, basically being in that lane and trying to find somebody that matches with you. So we have the expert in the house.
Well, and the thing is, I'm not just talking about your looks, of course. It's so much more. And so
what else?
Well, one of the things I talk about in my book is that we do what's called, a lane quiz where you got to find your triad. And what I mean by that is you can kind of rate yourself, from 1 to 10 on 12 different things. An example could be you could rate yourself on, your success level, on your fitness level, on your, empathy, on your personality, on your, there's lots of different things, on your level of crazy. There's all these different things you can basically rate yourself on. And then what you want to do is, once you rate yourself from 1 to 10 on these different categories, then what you have to do is you have to take your top 3 scores. So if you rate yourself like a 9 in looks and a 9 in your skill set in the sack and a 9 in intelligence, you probably need to be with somebody who has a pretty close score on your top 3 things that you're bringing to the table. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, I think I am hilarious. So I think that I would like to be with somebody who's also funny. I'd like to be with somebody who's smart and ambitious, because those are the things that I feel like I am, but I find that sometimes people are kind of like, well, like I had a woman come in at one point, and she was in her mid-50s, and she was probably 100 pounds overweight, and she went through this laundry list of what she wanted in a man, which was kind of like ordering a sandwich. And she said, well, I'd rather date men between 30 and 40. I want to date somebody with a 6-pack. And she went on and on and on. And I was like, and then she didn't graduate from high school, and she was talking about how she wanted somebody with a lot of education, making a lot of money. And I'm like, wait a second, hold on. I was like, do you have a 6-pack? Are you making a lot of money? Do you have lots of education? It's like, well, no. Well, what are you doing? Don't cry about not meeting anybody, but then you refuse to date somebody who's overweight. You refuse to date somebody who has an education level that's the same as yours. I get it that everybody's online and they see people and they go, oh, this woman's gorgeous and she has a 6-pack and that's what I like. Well, if you're wanting to date somebody who's really fit, you probably should care about your fitness too. Just like if you want to date somebody who, has a certain faith, it's not just looks. But what I find is that so many people nowadays just want something that they're not bringing.
Yeah. Well, we've talked to guys about that. Like sometimes shooting for the stars is just shooting yourself in the foot, because if you did get that supermodel, if you did get that fitness model and you don't measure up to her, that's going to create a lot of insecurity. You're going to probably get a lot of jealousy. You're not going to feel comfortable because you're not in the same lane. She's at a different level than you are, so make sure you find somebody that's on your level.
Just like you're dating somebody or you're with somebody who, I remember there was a guy and he said, I dated this woman for a year and a half, but she didn't have a lot of empathy towards me and she wasn't fun to talk to. And I'm like, if the sex is great, the sex is great, but that's not going to last, sir. Mm-hmm. Like, we got to figure this out, because you got to have somebody who fills your heart, and somebody who enjoy, chilling with on a Sunday. Even if you guys are just watching Netflix, you got to find somebody you're okay chilling with. And sometimes that's not necessarily in the exact package that you want. But I mean, that's why there's all these, these groups of incels, these people who, it's like, well, I'm unhappy, I'm not dating, I'm not having sex, but I only want to date a woman who looks like this. Mm-hmm. It's like, I want to date a model who goes to my Comic-Con, conventions. That's cool, but there might be like 3 women like that there, and they may not be interested in you. Mm-hmm. But maybe you have a neighbor who's really fun and cool, and she likes to do Dungeons and Dragons, and so do you. Like, give her a chance. Mm-hmm. But they don't, and then they're angry at women, and vice versa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
By the way, there's this like, well, I'm angry at women because they don't want to be with me. Well, you're only choosing women that don't want to be with you.
Yeah, right.
Like, dude, and same thing with women. I can't tell you how many women I meet between like 35 and 40, and they have great careers and they have they have bringing so much to the table, but they're like, well, I don't want to date a guy who's bald. Well, you're 35, 40. Like, you do realize that, not everybody is gonna, but then they're like, well, I have my standards. Yeah. Well, I get it, but you're waking up alone. Yeah. You don't want, if they want to be alone, then so be it. Yeah. Sometimes it's fun to be alone and just live your life alone and enjoy your life. But if that's not what you want, and you're not getting a lot of mileage out of what's happening right now, then you might want to sit down and say, you know what, maybe I will date a guy who is an inch taller than me. And I hate when women come in and they're 5'5" and they go, well, I only date over 6 feet tall. I'm 5'10". It's like, little stay with littles and big stay with bigs, please. But they don't.
But the reality is there's a small percentage of men who are 6 feet tall or above.
Right.
Population wise. That's like married, single, gay, straight. That's
whatever,
like everybody. I mean, that's 6 feet or taller. So if you say, in that example, if you say you're only going to date somebody that's 6 feet or taller, okay, you've automatically shrunk your dating pool down to a small population.
Yeah, less than 10%.
So, and then if you say, okay, then I want that person to now have this and have this and have this, and I mean, that pool is getting smaller and smaller.
These checklists are ridiculous these days,
and it can absolutely be a detriment to you as a person in terms of who you're looking for. Because I think a lot of times who you're looking for, the gift that you're looking for, doesn't necessarily have the wrapping that you thought it would on the outside.
Totally.
Yeah, and I mean, and we talk about having standards is a good thing if they're benefiting you. Now, what we're seeing a lot of, and to your point, that if you have these high standards, and what I find is what's really interesting is a lot of times these people who have these high standards, if you really got to like down below the surface and really got deep, they're almost covering up with these high standards. Like, I don't feel great about myself, so I'm going to have these high standards so that maybe this person will make me feel better about myself.
Totally.
But to that point, if you have high standards and they're not serving you, then they're just a detriment. They're not actually serving you. So like, I have high standards, I'm not going to settle. Okay, well then you're alone. So are they serving you? Are they benefiting you? Or are they just a detriment to you?
Right.
Like, we want to have standards that benefit us. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those standards that benefit us don't look the way we think they should look.
I love that you said that. It's standards that benefit us. It's like, are these standards? Because obviously, if you have the same value system, there's a lot of people that, if you're a devout Christian, you may not want to date an atheist, which I totally get, but it's like, if you're a man and you say, well, I only want to date women that look like models, well, how's that going for you, man?
Right.
I get it. And I understand you want to be with somebody you find attractive. You want to be somebody you're sexually attracted to, but you'd be surprised. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a guy I've been friends with for a really long time, and I'm usually not into gingers. It's not my cup of tea. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing is, the more I got to know him, the more I just wanted to give him a squeeze. And I think he's so great. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really care. There's certain things it's like, that maybe you can't get past certain things, but sometimes it's like, just let it go and be happy and choose to, open yourself up to maybe a slightly wider range of folks.
Yeah. And that's why I'm not anti-online dating.
No.
I'm just like, use that as
you're anti-online dating.
Well, I think it's basically a waste of time.
Cap.
But I'm just saying, if you're going to be online, get offline as quick as possible, because just to Kara's point, is you can't find out if this person is a match for you until you get in person. And a lot of times it's the ones that you don't expect. Like, you would never choose this person online, but you meet them in person and there's that vibe, there's that energy.
Totally.
They get your jokes. And here comes the unsexy, but the 90% of every relationship, ladies and gentlemen, communication.
Right.
Yeah.
How many times have you been in a relationship with somebody you like their butt, but you can't talk to them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this is the reality of it. And a lot of times you won't find out until you get in person with this, and you're sitting across the table from them, and all of a sudden, like, they get your jokes, they get your references, you're having this easy conversation. That might be your person, because you're gonna. I mean, we want to have the physical.
Yeah, I have a woman in my group who was yelling at me at one point because she's drop dead gorgeous, like Playboy bunny, beautiful, and she goes, "I don't understand why none of these guys are asking me out in the group," and I'm like,
"How's your personality?"
Yeah, maybe don't ask them how much money they make and the car they drive in line one.
Right.
Did she pull out the checklist right away?
No, she's snotty as hell, and I'm like, listen, I get it. I get that you have your standards and things like that, but it's funny because guys actually like women that are interested in them and curious about them.
Yes.
People like people that are curious, like be curious about others. And I think that's a big deal. And these days it's like people go on these, Starbucks dates and nobody asks them a question about themselves.
Right.
It's like people need to learn how to date and learn how to be concerned about somebody else. And they're not. It's like, please, I say to a lot of my members, I'm not a dating service, but I do like to give them a little coaching sometimes. I say, hey, listen, when you date somebody, on your first date, ask them at least 10 questions about themselves. Like, where did you grow up? Who's your favorite person? And sometimes they're like, oh, my Uncle Joe used to do this with me and he was my favorite. It's like, get to know them, because sometimes people will surprise you and people like to talk about themselves.
Oh, yeah.
You got to be able to talk. You have to be able to talk. You have to be able to have conversation and connect and relate to somebody, to whoever the person is that you're potentially getting into a relationship with, because, there's a lot, all the foo-foo fireworksy kind of stuff, they fade quickly. And so you got to be willing to have some substance stuff that can get you through years.
Sure.
You got to be able to unpack stuff. You got to be able to connect, and you got to be able to have some things that you have in common, and all these other kind of things. And you got to be able to find somebody that's kind of at your station of life.
Totally.
Maybe it's an age thing. Maybe it's, okay, how old are your kids versus how old are my kids, and where are you in life versus where am I in life? What are the things that are important to you, and what are the things that are important to me? And all these other kind of things. But all of that comes down to, you got to be able to sit down and have a daggone conversation.
Communication, and it's not sexy, but that is the number one thing in relationships.
Absolutely.
And speaking of communication,
we
better communicate this break.
Let's communicate up on this breakage.
Men of Masculinity. We'll be right back on KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. Bye bye.
Boom.
I like my disjointed break.
I thought that was really smart. You guys, every time we have the same conversations, but I always get something else out of that. Yeah. I love it when you said that about the detriment. That
I see so many, they say I have standards, but their standards are killing them because they're like holding on to these standards that they don't even meet themselves.
Are those standards serving you?
Yeah.
Well, I also think that a lot of people, it's kind of like, and it's an excuse not to be intimate with somebody.
It's an excuse.
It's very offensive.
It is such an excuse. You're
very
totally right.
Mechanism.
It's an excuse because
my standards are an excuse.
I had a guy who was a 29-year-old virgin, and he had dated a woman in the group, and she was a teacher, and she was attractive, and I was like, oh, she's going to go out with him. I was kind of surprised. And he said, I didn't want to get intimate with her, even though I'm a 29-year-old virgin, because she had big thighs.
See, that's somebody who sat in their house by themselves too long and created
somebody
this
who's
fantasy.
Just watching porn and just not having an idea about real intimacy.
Exactly.
We might have to touch on that a little bit.
Exactly.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. Try to look at your phone.
Yeah.
Like, look at us in the screen.
Like this?
I was about to say that, too. It's weird when we're in here
just
because
like
we don't look at each other.
Yeah.
We look at the camera.
You can look at us on the screen.
Okay, I see that. Yeah.
So it's weird we're in the room, though, because we're talking to each other, but we're never, ever looking at each other.
The nice thing is because when we're sitting like this, when she's looking at you, she's like on the screen looking at you, and then vice versa. So it actually kind of worked out. But
But, okay,
if you just
I'll
look
be
at us
straight.
on the screen.
Sorry.
Then the people can go, I want to see Kara's pretty face.
Yeah.
Smart water, the nectar of...
I think that's something. I think it's just something to touch on, because it's like, okay, well, are you doing this because you really have standards? Or are you doing this because you're scared to be intimate?
And you don't want to fail.
Yeah.
Boom. All right. And we're back.
We're back.
We're back. Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City and on the interwebs everywhere. If you can listen to a podcast somewhere, you can find this one on that podcast because we are absolutely there doing our thing, doing our thug thizzle, handling business, taking names. We doing it to it. We're your home for healthy masculinity. Ironically, a lot of our audience is women. We have some very good friends that are women and some contributors to the show that are women, people with expert advice and perspective. And one of those is here today, Kara Donahue. She's fantastically awesome. In the Loop singles. She has staffs in inside joke. Go back and listen to a few minutes ago. In various cities, events for and with singles where you get together and meet, hang out, or something happen, or something pop off. Cool. You travel. You go to different cities, countries, travel around the world. They just got back from Ireland for St. Patrick's Day. All that kind of stuff, man. Doing their thing, man. And so she gets to see front row the dynamic that plays out between people who are single and in the process of meeting other people. And so we're talking about staying in your dating lane in terms of that dating process for all you singles out there. By the way, if you're watching us live right now, you can put a comment in the chat. We'll see your comment right up on the screen. And if you want a question, a comment, whatever, JBK will make you famous. He'll put your name in and comment right up on the screen.
If I like your comment, if you have a good comment, if you have a good question, if you're just trying to be hateful, then no, we ain't going to put you on there. But you might have a question for Miss Kara Donahue because she has 18 years of expertise dealing with the crazy folks in the single world. So speaking of those folks that might be a little off the deep end, we were talking about standards. And are your standards serving you? And Kara brought up a great one during the break, so we're going to dig into that now. But are your standards a defense mechanism? Are you too afraid to be vulnerable and using your standards as a defense mechanism? Because we know that the number one thing that you need is vulnerability and be able to communicate that vulnerability with another person. That's what we all want. We want intimacy, and that comes from being able to communicate your vulnerability. So what do you think? How many folks out there now are using their quote-unquote, I have high standards as a defense mechanism?
I think it happens constantly. I think that it's the high standards thing. Listen, we all need standards, period. But when your standards are stopping you from actually dating and actually finding your person, that's a problem. And so it continues to happen. Or they always are waiting. Okay, well, I'm going to wait until, you know what I mean? I'm going to wait until I finish this course. Or I'm going to wait until I lose 10 pounds. Or I'm going to wait. Everybody's always putting themselves on hold. I'm like, guess what? Life goes by in a flash. And, I just had a person in our group recently pass away at a very young age. And I thought, it's like you got to live now. And if you truthfully really want a partner in life, then you need to take some accountability on what you're bringing to the table. And you know what? If you are you're bringing intelligence, you're bringing a personality, you're bringing some attractiveness, it's cool to want somebody who has the same thing. It's completely fine. But if you're, having some issues and you have some issues, whatever those issues are, you got to give other people some grace.
Oh, we don't have no issues.
We got no issues.
We never had no issues.
This is we more issues can't relate to, but
we got more issues than Kleenex got tissues.
Exactly.
But these issues, they do keep us. They do keep us single. They do keep us from moving ahead just in life. A lot of people have excuses for a lot of things that they don't do, and those things that they don't do keep them from experiencing everything they want to experience.
Yeah, and if you're waiting for the perfect one, if you're waiting because I'm focused on my career or this or that or the other thing, a lot of times it's through the process of dating different people that you figure out who you are and what you like and what you want. So if you're just waiting for Mr. and Miss Perfect, you're just going to keep waiting. And a lot of times that's what happens is, I'm waiting for so-and-so, but how are you going to know what you like if you don't have, wisdom comes from experience.
Yeah.
And you've got to be out there experiencing, and sometimes the experiences aren't the sweetest, but you learn more from the hard lessons than anything else. But you're not going to get any lessons if you're just online swiping. You got to be out there.
Totally. One of the best words of advice I can give, just been working with singles for so long, thousands and thousands and thousands of singles, seriously. And the one thing I always say to people, if you truly want to meet somebody, my advice would be put your eggs in lots of baskets. And what I mean by that is, get yourself out there. That means, okay, use the apps to a certain extent, give yourself a time limit. Like, okay, I'm going to use it for 20 minutes a day. I'm going to check it. I'm going to use it for 20 minutes a day. And then instead of me, doing some work at home, I'm going to go to Starbucks and sit out there and talk to somebody. I'm going to put myself out there. I might take a golf lesson. I might be, put myself out. I mean, one of the guys in the group went to a salsa. We just did an event for salsa, and he ended up buying, a membership to the salsa dance class or whatever, taking a coursework, and he met somebody and he just put himself out there. So I would say, like, if you go to a Rockies game and you see somebody there that you want to talk to, say hi to them. The worst case scenario is, hey, that person didn't really respond back. Who cares? You're not going to probably see him again. But what if you did? Yeah. So I always say, put yourself out there, and sometimes that means you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah, and going into doing things that you wouldn't normally do, getting into circles of people you would normally. You'd be surprised how many fantastic people just in general you can meet by going to a seminar, or going to this or going to that. Me and JB met at some random seminar somewhere.
Yeah.
That was
That's
5-6
how I met
years
you,
ago.
Kurt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and
seriously.
And it's just like, but you never know what doors will open just from being in new places, because you get in the same circles and you don't meet any of the new people, and you think everybody is like the people that you know, and they're not. And
communicate to people that you want to meet somebody, because the thing is that you might have a friend who has an awesome guy at their work that like, put yourself out there and say yes more. Do you want to go to the Super Bowl party? Yeah, I'll go. Just put yourself out there, because I find that the more people you meet, it's a numbers game to a certain extent. You just got to meet more people. And think about this: in the last couple of years after COVID, how many people work from home now?
A lot.
People are isolated. And they become more and more isolated, and then it becomes more and more scary to actually get your butt out there. And sometimes you have to just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to make myself go out there. I remember I was doing an event at Top Golf. You guys have probably been to Top Golf once or twice. But I was at Top Golf just sitting in the bar, and I got there maybe an hour early before the event I was running was starting. And I probably met 3 or 4 guys in the bar, just chatting with them, just sitting at Top Golf after work. And I don't golf. And I thought to myself, if I was single, I would sit here every, like
ladies,
3 times a week.
Telling you about golf
course is the
No,
spot.
it is.
And I love the fact that you are basically just proving my point. Get offline and get out there.
Yes.
Hater.
I'm just saying.
He's such a hater.
I'm just saying, like, it has its place. But I think that place has been overutilized, especially, and I'm going to bring it up, and I know we hate talking about it, but if you're going to be uncomfortable, if you're going to get out of your lane or get back in your lane, sometimes, ladies, you need to say yes more. You need to swipe right more on some of these guys.
Yes.
All the statistics say you ladies only like 20% of the men online, and those guys are getting 100% of the likes, and then there's 80% of the guys that you do not find, quote unquote, do not find attractive. And these are statistics from Twitter or not Twitter, Match.com and eHarmony and whatnot.
Totally.
So, ladies, broaden your liking experience, because if you're all looking for the same guys, and you wonder why most of you ladies are going, all men are dogs. Well, it's because you're all going after the same guys, and they have so many options. They're
dogs.
Their plate runneth over, as it were. So maybe. Look at some other guys.
Also, guys don't know if it's like, should I open the door? Should I not open the door? There's all these mixed signals these days because of the roles that we have been shifting and everything like that. So I would just say to ladies, if you're interested in somebody, give them the green light. If you're at a bar and you start talking to a guy, smile at him, engage. Don't just stand in your corner and put your back against and then say, oh, he didn't even talk to me. Well, you didn't even look at him.
We did a whole episode on Turn the Light On.
We did. Turn your light on.
Because, back in the day, there used to be a thing where ladies would drop a handkerchief to get a guy's attention.
Yes.
It's the same sort of thing. Like, especially after Me Too and all the COVID stuff and everything going on, men are terrified. And so we want to approach you, but
we don't want to be Me Too.
Right. Don't want to be Me Too. Don't want to be canceled. Don't want to be brought up on charges. And all these things. There's horror stories out there of all these things happening to a guy who's just a little too aggressive or just a little too like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to give it a shot. And then he just got, hamstring.
Well, don't give the whole, where have all the cowboys gone? And then you're not open to meeting. I mean, listen.
And you ain't on the farm.
I am the biggest feminist in the world, but I will tell you this. I like a man who will approach me and say, hey, I find you attractive. Let's talk, something. It's like, and so women are saying, I remember this woman was complaining because she was on a cruise and no guy had bought her a drink. And I'm like, they're afraid, and she's attractive. I was like, they're afraid to approach you because they don't want you to to tell all your friends he's a creep because he said hi to you and got you a drink.
Yeah.
At some point, ladies have to be more open and give more green light, and guys need to feel more empowered to do so.
And ladies,
that's what I think.
You have to give a guy's opening. Like, you have to let them know, like, a lot of this, well, I looked over at him and stared at the back of his head for 3 seconds. Why didn't he come over? Why didn't he know? I gave him all the... Guys are very linear. We're very one-dimensional.
Unfortunately, it has to be a bright light
it's
that you shine.
It's got to be a bright light. You gotta put that flare gun up in the sky.
It's like a paramedic trying to see if your pupils are working. Like, sometimes you got to shine that light right up in there to say, like, hey. I mean, and it, to you, it might feel like you're doing extra. To you, it might feel like, okay, I'm going overboard. I don't want to be seen, as a hoe or whatever. But, I mean, but to a generally nice guy, a green light can go a long way.
How much do you want to meet a nice guy?
Right.
If what you've been doing hasn't been working, you got to do something different. Yeah. Which means get that flare gun out, ladies. Speaking of flare guns,
boom.
We better send this one up for a break.
What word?
Right.
Men of Masculinity on KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. We'll be right back.
Nice.
I know that was premature, but I know this.
No, but the other ones were short. The other segments were long.
No, I love that you said that. I think that was good, and I also think that ultimately, I mean, women complain to me all the time. Yeah. And by the way, when I broke up with Nir, in that 1 month of December, I was asked out 5 times, and I'll just say this. I have a lot of girlfriends that are way better looking than me, and they
personality.
And I'll tell you, when I'm talking to people and I'm engaging with them, they find it more comfortable. They want it. And so it's funny because there are guys that were not in my lane physically. I felt were better looking than me in everything, but they literally would ask me out. And I think a lot of it was just because I was fun and friendly and I seemed interested in them.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be an extrovert as well.
No.
Like a lot of people are not extroverts, they're introverts, but that doesn't mean that doesn't give you an excuse not to be friendly and open. You can be an open energy introvert.
Yep.
I mean,
totally.
And so it's not like you got to walk up and you got to be the life of the party when you walk in the room.
All. Yeah.
But you do. But I mean, it is incumbent upon you for the sake of your own success to be open. I mean, to let a guy know that, hey, I'm open to, like if,
One of the guys I went out with,
come and talk to me.
One of the guys I went out was about an inch and a half shorter than me, and he was about 10 years younger than me, but he was very, very smart. And we had this great conversation. And at the end of the conversation, he's like, hey, listen, I'd love to continue this conversation. Can I have your number? And he's not the type, and me being so tall, you guys, I mean, I understand the whole 6 foot thing, but me being that tall, guys that are short of me rarely ask me out.
Right.
But I was like, you know what? I thought he was cool and sexy. Yeah. And I went out with him and we had a great date. It just, it didn't end up working out at the end. And the funny thing was, the reason it didn't work out is he told me that he wished I would chase him more. And I was like, no, you need to, because I even said to him, hey, when you're in town, I'd love to have dinner with you. I think that's a green light. Yep. Hey, because he lived in a different state. Yeah, he lived in Austin. I keep on meeting this guy in Austin, but he worked here sometimes. And I said, hey, when you're in Denver, call me up and we'll go out for dinner. And when I'm back in town, I'll give you, I texted him when I came back in town. He said that I wasn't chasing him enough. And so there's...
Sounds like a player right there. Like somebody's got... His cup
kind of something was going on.
Sounds like he's used to being pursued heavily.
And maybe he was, but I just thought to myself, and I said to him, maybe I'm old school, but I'm being straight up about.
That's something we should bring up in the next break.
I got a question I want to pose.
All right,
perfect.
It's an intriguing question.
All right, so this is segment 4.
Wrapping up.
We're wrapping up the fourth quarter here. Right. So you want to bring us back?
Yeah. We're back, ladies and gentlemen.
We're back.
Plural of staff is staffs. I don't care what nobody says. I went to public school.
Still sounds like
I went to public school, and I say so.
Still sounds like you need some ointment over there. It sounds like you got some sort of staff.
Don't judge me, man. See, I'm tired of telling you stuff on a golf course that you bring on air. This is public, man. This is public forum. You're supposed to be doing that.
I told you to get the powder, man.
The little powder. I need to try the powder. The powder might work better. Anyhow, hey, we're talking about dating in your lane, and we have a good friend, an expert, the proprietor, the leader, the initiator, the founder, the owner of In the Loop. I just had a bunch of titles in there for you.
TheBomb.com.
TheBomb.com. Kara Donahue is in the house.
My child calls me. Thanks.
Nice. So I have a question, and so here in our fourth quarter, I have a question I want to pose in terms of staying in your lane. Do you think it's possible that staying in your lane, in terms of a person that's in your lane, could in some way be somebody that is opposite of you in some ways. For example, I happen to be an extrovert. I'm a speaker. I in front of people a lot, on the air, all that kind of stuff. And so could I already have my opinion and my experience, but the person that might be a great match for me, could that person be somebody who is not necessarily a spotlight person and is more of a homebody and all that kind of stuff? Is that am I crazy? Is that
totally
possible?
I don't think lane means you're, the
same.
Twinsies. I think lane means that you guys have a similar value system. You're bringing a lot of similar things to the table. My fiance, for instance, is extreme introvert, and it's like he's IT, he's a finance person.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Hey, do I creep him out when I hug him?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Do I?
Well,
For real?
When you grab his buns.
No,
yeah.
well, that was that one time.
When you hold it too long.
That was that one
When you
time.
hold it too
he
long.
loves it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, but he's a true introvert. But our values are the same. We like that, And by the way, you don't have to be exactly in the same lane. Like he has a 6-pack and I do not. But we're both. We both care about the same things. We both value the same things. We both value friendship. We value our time together. We value family. Things like that. And by the way, we also have to have everything in common. One of the things I think is interesting is people are like, well, I want my wife to golf with me and I want her to go skiing with me and I want her to do all these things with me. It's like, no.
Not necessarily.
He doesn't want me to go snowboarding with him.
Yeah.
He told me that he goes, I don't want to wait for you.
Yeah.
I know you're slow. You don't even want to be there. And so the thing is, you guys don't have to be connected at the hip, but you have to be on the same page.
Yeah, I think
sure.
the same lane, I think to your point, really is about your value systems and what you want out of life. Because, we talk about so much the polar opposites of the masculine and feminine dynamic. Like you have to have one in their masculine, one in their feminine to have that polarity and that sexual attraction. Well, that doesn't mean that you have to have everything else the same or that you're in the same lane. So you're both alphas in business and this and that. A lot of times what you want is harmony.
Totally.
And so that harmony is that balance of that polarity. Like, okay, maybe you're the extrovert and they're the introvert. Maybe you're the onstage person and they're the behind-the-scenes person. But you're both working towards the same goals. You have the same values. Probably you have the same wants. You want to change the world in your own way as your own team. So that creates that harmony. So necessarily, you may not want to find somebody who's just like you.
I love that word picture because when you say harmony, if the three of us, you're a singer, Kara, but we aren't.
We don't want to hurt your
This ain't
ears.
going good.
Goodbye.
But if we were to sing harmony, the three of us in this room, it would be different notes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the same exact note that we would sing in order to create harmony. Harmony is created through multiple different notes brought together. And so I love that word picture. I never thought about that, but that word picture is you bring your note, I bring my note, and then we put our notes out there at the same time, whatever the notes are, and then it creates a beautiful harmony that we can both dance to.
I love that. And I love that you brought up that you guys don't have to be exactly the same. Because one of the things he loves about me is I'm so social. He goes, I don't have to plan anything. He goes, it's basically the party's there. And what I like about him is I found that the longer I was with him, the less anxiety I had. Because I'm wound tight. And being around him, he just makes everything easier for me. And everybody has a different love language. I know that people roll their eyes about the love language, but I think that's really important. And sometimes, that person who's in the perfect package that you like their package, but they don't speak the same love language. And so, one of my best friends was telling me that she's been dating this guy for 4 months. She goes, he never gives her any words of affirmation. She likes to hear that she's funny or smart or beautiful. He goes, and I go, well, that's not his love language. And he looks at it as like mowing her lawn. Yeah. And by the way, I'd rather have acts of service than somebody telling me I'm pretty. Just mow my lawn, thanks.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes when we talk about the harmony and the polarity, a lot of times what people keep getting stuck on this same thing, and they're like, they've got to be just like me. But what you really need is somebody who has strengths where you're weak, and then where your strengths are, they're weak, so that you can create that kind of harmonic partnership where you're fulfilling or filling those other person's needs. So like, I would like somebody who is probably more organized than I am, because when it's just me, I'm like, meh, I don't care. Yeah. I would like a clean house, but I really don't have the energy or the desire to do all that every day. So
is that why you invited me over next weekend?
bring your broom and your mop.
Now you tripping.
No, but
Now
I
you-
get that
Now
though.
you
But having
tripping.
somebody who doesn't mind doing that,
Yeah.
I hate to cook, so
It's kind of like
nice.
it's kind of like when you go to the theater. You have the stage and then you have the performer. Both of them need each other in order to create great theater. A performer without a stage is a narcissist.
Yeah.
A stage without a performer is just
Empty.
a space, just a
Yeah.
warehouse. And so in that dynamic of that relationship, it's okay if one person is one and one person is the other, but they can both need each other in that way in order to make great theater. You know, this video came across my timeline, and this guy was saying that, you know, that marriage is not broken, people are, and people stop serving one another in relationships.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that oppositeness, that dynamic of you bringing yours, I bring mine, and we can be different, all that kind of stuff. If your love language is different than mine, then it's an opportunity for me to grow in my learning how to serve you in your love language.
Yep.
And if mine is words of affirmation, yours is gifts, then it means more when I buy you a gift, because I had to actually put the concerted effort into doing that. So it's not necessarily giving up anything by having somebody with a different love language or anything like that. The opposites can amplify and magnify your service to one another.
Know them. Know what makes them happy.
Absolutely.
Sometimes what makes them happy doesn't necessarily make you happy. And to circle back to what Jason was saying earlier, one of the things I think that, okay, so I'm all big on gathering information, filtering that information, and then putting that information into action, right? So that's what we're doing here. It's like people can listen to us, but if they don't, and if they're hearing what we're saying and they feel like, okay, you know, this could maybe help me out, well, then one of the things you can do to put into action, if it's a lady listening out there or a man, maybe swipe on a few people that maybe you wouldn't normally swipe on. You know, maybe swipe on a guy who's a couple inches shorter than what you're used to. Guys, maybe swipe on a woman that isn't the ethnicity you're used to dating or what have you. I mean, whatever that looks like, but maybe open up your range a little bit. Somebody asks you out, and you know, a lot of times I wouldn't want to date a younger guy, and that's what I have ended up, you know, getting engaged to. But sometimes you have to just maybe open up your horizons a little bit. And if you say, okay, for the next month, I'm going to swipe on a few people that maybe in the past I would have hesitated on, or I'm going to maybe talk to somebody that I maybe wouldn't have talked to in a different situation. I think that those little baby steps can make a huge change in your life.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things we talk about a lot of times too, especially when you get into long-term relationships and marriage, you got to look at it like a business. Well, you can't all be CEOs in the business. And it's the same sort of kind of idea.
Sure.
Like, you need to bring in somebody who has a different skill set than you. And so if what you've been doing, and then you keep doing the same thing, looking for the same people, and you keep getting the same results, well, that's just insanity. That's the definition of insanity. So maybe it's time to try something different. So ladies and gentlemen, it's time to maybe look for somebody who has a different skill set than you. Maybe somebody who has different hobbies than you or something like that, but somebody you can communicate with. And I think for most of us, if we would focus more on the connectivity of communication, do we understand each other? Is there understanding? Can we communicate? Because we're going to do an episode coming up soon about arguing gracefully, because that is a huge part of relationships. How can you handle disagreements and conflict in a relationship? Is it conflict or is it opportunity? Mm-hmm. And these are things that if you have somebody who's just like you and you're both extroverted alphas, you're probably not going to get a lot of good conversation in there. There's just be a lot of, you know, argumentative kind of I'm right, you're right, you know, you're wrong, and vice versa. Maybe having somebody who has a different communication style, or that you just understand each other, because communication is 90% of relationships, and that's why meeting people in person and getting to talk to them and seeing how, you know, and trying out, you know, it's like trying on clothes or shoes. You got to try on different things to find out what really works for you.
And landing my plane, I think, you know, folks trying to stay in their lane, understanding that, first of all, to your point, if you keep doing the same thing, you will get the same result. Like your type, quote unquote, that you keep going after, if that hasn't been successful, then maybe you should look at your type per se. And to that point, you know, getting outside of your comfort zone, getting outside of the box that you put yourself in, but exploring some different options, and at the same time, not going way outside of somebody that's just not compatible with you. Yeah. If somebody has just a different, you know, just a different, again, stages in life, different values, different, all that kind of stuff. You know, if you're not a gym rat, but you want somebody that is a gym rat, okay, the person that is a gym rat is going to be in the gym while you're going to be somewhere else. And so, you know, considering all those things is is hugely, hugely, hugely important. And speaking of hugely important, Kara, how can people get a hold of you and or In the Loop?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, so you can go to intheloopsingles.com. And you can check us out there. When you go to intheloopsingles.com, it gives you some information about what we do. You can plug your name in. We'll get a hold of you. We actually call people and tell them a little bit about us. And then if you're interested, you can come in and get a membership. We have in-person appointments, and we have Zoom appointments. We make it as easy as possible. And then once you do join In the Loop, you have about 30 different activities a month to choose from.
Wow.
And that's 30 activities in Denver, 30 activities in Austin, 30 activities in Nashville, and 30 activities in Seattle. So we do have 4 locations, and you can go on vacation with us. We're going to Cabo in May. We have a single summer camp, which is in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, coming up in July. So yeah, we have a blast, and it's really fun, but it's also effective. You can actually make a circle of single friends to hang out with and meet people face to face. That's what it is. Yeah.
And the best thing about this is if you don't know what to do, and I hear so much from a lot of middle years singles, they're like, oh, I just work and go home. I don't know what to do. Kara figures it all out for you. She's got staffs. They figured it out for you.
She's got staffs.
And we're there to host it and introduce you around. You just have to click and go.
And the nice thing about it is you go and there's a lot of the same people who show up, and in every event there's new people, but you'll start to make friends. You'll start to see people. So then you don't feel outside. You feel like, oh, well, this is my crew. We're going to go hang out. We're going to go do something fun. So
yeah.
So holler at your boys.
Yeah,
MadmenRadio.com, Mad Men of Masculinity. Check us out everywhere. Like, subscribe, all those kind of good things. Don't be a sucker. Engage with us. Let us know you like us, you hate us. What's the plural of staff? Whatever your opinion is. Kara, we thank you so much. You're a good friend.
Thank you for coming on.
Lovely what you do, and we'll see you next time.
And after you watch this, make sure you write down your questions, because we're hoping to get Kara back on tomorrow for our 30-minute session, and then we can answer your questions. I know you got questions. I know you're being shy.